Hello and welcome to the TechGig podcast, folks. I'm your host Sukriti, and today I'm here to converse about one of the most trending things on the internet, that is Metaverse. The word Metaverse describes a fully realized digital world where that exists beyond the one we live in. In today's podcast, we will cover the term metaverse for you, what it means, its origin, all the recent developments, and all the tectonic shifts it will bring along in the future. And for this, I have a very special guest from the Happiest Mind Technologies. Please join me in welcoming Ritesh Gupta, CTO of PES at Happiest Mind Technologies. Welcome to the show, Ritesh.
Thank you, Sukriti. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me on this podcast. And really excited to talk about this buzzword, as you rightly said, the buzzword these days, the metaverse. Thank you so much, Sukriti.
Thanks, Ritesh, and I'm looking forward to some great insights from our conversation today. So, our digital world is buzzing with meta, right? Every now and then we hear this word. Past couple of years where we were trying to adapt to live into this virtual world, working and trying to, fix our lives into it. Meta has suddenly become the term and might become a norm in the coming time. It is the new buzzword, as you said, in tech circles that has captured everyone's imagination and thought process. Can you provide us with a quick background of its origin and the journey so far?
Sure, Sukriti. As you rightly said, right, meta people became aware of this word metaverse specifically when Mark Zuckerberg rebranded Facebook. But then the history of metaverse goes back to 1992. Now, before getting into the history, most of the tech innovation, if we have to relate, has got an history. We talk about gesture computing, we talk about computer vision. They all go back to some of the science fiction movies. For example, Minority Report, you talk about Matrix. And similarly, metaverse also has got an history. As I said, 30 years back, 3 decades back, in 1992, Neil Stephenson actually coined the word metaverse in his novel Snow Crash. And that novel was all about introducing a digital world apart from the real physical world, a different world altogether, which is completely digital. That's where actually the origination of metaverse started. Nobody realized it. Everybody took it as yet another science fiction movie. However, after that, 1992, we saw slow and steady progression in this space. In 1993 is when Stephen Jackson's game company introduced a text-based virtual world, which a lot of us who are from that era have seen this. There used to be virtual rooms where people used to connect to those virtual rooms and used to interact with each other. It was not a digital world, but it was more of a text-based world, which was at that time called as MUD, which is multi-user domain. People used to come, used to interact, chat, and discuss various other things. I would relate this also to be, let's say, a precursor or a history to metaverse. And one of the most popular platform was Lambda Move. That's what we know. And if we progress in 2003, 19 years back, Liden Labs actually created something called as a Second Life. Now, this Second Life was nothing but a version of metaverse. It people used, company used, but then it never became a mainstream. People, most of them may not be aware of it, but it still exists. And it was another leap into the metaverse space. Now, let's move a little ahead. Ernest Kling, in his debut novel called Ready Player One, which was released in 2011, which was actually taken up by Steven Spielberg and created, and he made a movie in 2018, and that was actually a presentation of dystopia, which will set in 2045, and we are typically seeing that happening right now. It was people moving into a virtual world because of the economic crisis. There were multiple reasons or scenario given where people were forced to move into the digital world, which we are calling right now metaverse. Now that was another move, but then there was a strong what do I call, a strong message in that movie, which will come to this later. Now after that, the progression in metaverse is continuously happening. Uh, Facebook rebranded itself. There were a lot of companies. Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox. They they made a lot of progress in metaverse by creating a collaborative and immersive games where kids, people used to interact and play together in a virtual world. We all are aware 2017 Decentraland launched, and it created a platform for people to play game, create artwork, attend parties. Now there are a lot more into the history, but then right now, before even Facebook announced or rebranded itself Meta, Microsoft launched Mesh. That was another step towards the metaverse. Now if you see, this metaverse is not just now. It has been happening. It started 3 decades back. Progression slowly happening, and now we see a certain progress. All of a sudden, too much of attention into this digital space, and where a lot of biggies are jumping in and trying to create their existence and presence into this space.
So, Ritesh, this is very interesting. Facebook rebranding itself as Meta and other companies making certain investments into it. Do you think it is yet another tech fad, or you really see it as a tectonic shift that is here to stay for all of us in the market right now?
Sure, Sukriti. That's a very obvious question when we talk about the technology and we see a sudden emergence of new technology coming in. But then before I answer your question directly, let's see what's happening in this space right now. Now, if we read the reports, the analyst reports, and the financial statements. Bloomberg intelligence reports suggest that this market, metaverse market, is going to grow up to $800 billion in mid of this decade. And this will grow up to $2.5 trillion economy by the end of this decade, which is 2030. Now, that's a prediction. That's a prediction that let's say analyst firms are doing it, seeing the current movement or current things happening in this space. Facebook, we all know Facebook rebranded themselves to Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg believes that metaverse is a future of internet. He feels that 2D internet would convert or emerge into a 3D environment or 3D internet. Let's call it as a 3D internet. A lot of investments happening from Facebook side of it. The numbers, different numbers floating all around the place, but then Facebook has spent around $18 billion already into this space, creating frameworks, environment, ecosystem for metaverse, for the digital virtual world. As I said earlier, Microsoft already released Mesh, that is their infrastructure, their positioning into the space. Now, they recently also launched HoloLens 2. This devices, we'll again talk a little bit later, but then they released HoloLens 2, which is the advanced version of their previous release, and taking care of a lot of problems or a lot of difficulties or a lot of discomforts that people saw or felt using HoloLens earlier. But then the new version of HoloLens addresses a lot of things. Their tagline in this space, which says enables presence and shared experience from anywhere on any device through MR application. Now, the single tagline of Microsoft for Mesh says a lot of things. And Microsoft's recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard, which at $68.7 billion, which itself shows Microsoft's commitment into this space, that amount of money they spent to kind of create or take their presence into a different level. Now, not just Microsoft and Facebook, NVIDIA started onto their investment into metaverse space. Their GPU would make metaverse immersive. They created a platform, Omniverse. They call it as an Omniverse, which would basically empower people to build metaverse. NVIDIA has a strong belief in metaverse as it is going to pick up. Now, Sukriti, we talked about the Decentraland, the sandbox. These are all virtual. So recently they came up with the virtual real estate, where people are actually going and buying the virtual land. We know Snoop Dogg bought a virtual property, and his intention was to build a virtual mansion, his own virtual mansion. Now, can you believe after Snoop Dogg bought that property on Sandbox, one of the person has spent $450,000 to become his neighbor. And he just bought that piece of virtual real estate that he wanted to become Snoop Dogg's neighbor. So apart from that, Epic Games, Robux, as I talked about, these games already exist now. Not today, but then sometime back, Fortnite actually launched a virtual concert by Ariana Grande and Travis Scott. Most of the people know about it. Now, millions of people attended that virtual concert. Now, coming back to the question, Sukriti, looking at what's happening, Metaverse is not something which is going to come. It already exists. People are already into it. Going forward, what we will see is basically the enhancement or optimization in this space, more adaptation of Metaverse in consumer space, in industry space, in enterprise space. So we would see that going forward.
No, it's very interesting that you mentioned all these million-dollar deals that are, happening all across the world. And just wanted to understand, are they being enabled by crypto? How does one ensure the sanctity of these transactions? And what technology components will play an important role in the larger metaverse as you speak, Ritesh?
Yeah. So crypto is the enabler for all the transactions in Metaverse. Now, crypto is one of the means which is going to create a different economy, maybe a parallel economy into the digital world. As we talked about, right? These cryptos are being used to buy any of the virtual land in Metaverse. Crypto is a way to kind of buy NFTs. NFTs, we are seeing the boom that is happening in the NFT world. It is going into millions and billions and trillions of dollars already, as we are starting to kind of get Metaverse in the mainstream. However, crypto is one of the technologies. The other technologies that would come into play would be blockchain. Now, blockchain would become a mainstream. We all know blockchain, people kind of use it as a synonym to Bitcoin, but that's actually not, and that's not the subject of our discussion. So blockchain actually could in the past was only constrained till the cryptocurrency. But now with Metaverse, with decentralization coming up, with Web 3.0, as I said, Metaverse is typically a 3D view of an internet. Now, blockchain would become a mainstream. It would be adopted by a lot of organizations, a lot of enterprises to create a decentralized application, which we call it as a DApps. That would come in the mainstream. Now, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, which already exists, we have already seen the big data era, when the data, the amount of data that got processed onto the cloud, we have seen that era. But now with Metaverse coming in, the amount of data is going to grow exponentially. Now, think about a situation where when we talk about these cloud computing, big data era, it is typically an IoT things where the sensor data is being sent onto the cloud for processing at a regular interval of time. But now with Metaverse, a person wearing a headset equipped with multiple sensors, the amount of data that it would generate, and it would send this data to the cloud for processing. That amount of data is unimaginable, and we will see a lot of enhancements happening in the artificial intelligence, the model building, the cloud computing, the big data to the next level. Now, edge computing will again take a leapfrog into the processing power. A lot of processing is going to happen onto the on the edge side. 5G semiconductors for parallel processing, edge analytics, lightning fast communication. These are another set of technology that is going to go to a next level when we see this Metaverse enhancements happening. Hardware, VR headset, as I talked about it as HoloLens 2. Now, hardware, when we talk about AR, VR, these headsets, these devices, they were very uncomfortable earlier. Within an hour, or let's say within 30 minutes, 45 minutes, people used to get tired of wearing these devices. Now, HoloLens 2 has addressed that. Google has already kind of restarted their Lens project. They're thinking about getting the Lens project also. Now, there will be, these devices will become more comfortable. People will be able to wear for a longer period of time. Another thing which is going to play a major role or could be a point of concern, which we may talk later, is the security and the data privacy. Now, the security and data privacy, we are already talking about in terms of distributed computing, the GDPR, multiple compliances that we talk, the security is becoming very important. But then the kind of data that Metaverse is going to collect or would work on would bring in security and data privacy also into the picture. 3D content creation, that is also going to be very important. And as I said, NVIDIA's investment into Omniverse, that's one of the platform where these 3D content can be generated. IoT sensors, we all know about how it will grow in Metaverse. So these are the overall technology that would be in play when we take Metaverse from where we are to the next level.
Now, those were some great insights, Ritesh, I must say. So, now as we wrap up here with the last question, can you give us an idea about some of the challenges with the metaverse and what its future looks like over the next 5 years, let's just say?
Sure, Sukriti. Challenges, as I said, right, data privacy, the security would become very important. Now, when we talk about this security, we all know a recent incident that has happened in the metaverse where there was an assault happened to one of the user. Now, these are things that are challenges right now, but all biggies, all enterprises are trying to solve that problem. And lot would happen in this space. But as of now, as we stand, the data privacy and security is going to be one of the bigger challenges in this space. Now, when we say metaverse, we are talking about a digital avatar of a person. Now, this creates a little bit of a challenge onto the identity side of it, the impersonation, the identity theft that we still talk in today's world. We talk about identity theft, but with metaverse, with a digital avatar, who's impersonating whom would be another challenge. The invasion on a similar line of an identity theft and impersonation is an invasive. The metaverse may become a little invasive onto the personal life. The other important point in terms of challenges is an unreal world. Now, if you remember in first question of yours, I talked about this Real Player One, and there is a message out there. The Real Player One movie is actually trying to put a message that there is something real which is more important than a virtual world. That's a message that movie carries. And over here, the challenge or a worry could be people, users may get attached to the unreal world, unemotional world, rather than a physical world, which is a lot more important. Now, apart from the data, the technology, those are things that currently is a challenge. I would not call it as a typical challenge. We have enough infrastructure, enough technology to take care of the data that we are going to produce now. Going forward, these are all going to improve. The edge will become stronger. The cloud will be able to process a lot more data in a faster way. 5G will create a lightning communication, which would be the main important thing for metaverse. But then the soft side of the challenges, as I said, real world, the identity, the data privacy and security is a challenge that we see right now. But as we progress, these are all going to get solved, and we will be in a virtual world soon. And we may all have a digital avatar of ourselves.
That's very interesting, Ritesh. I think this was a real breakthrough conversation for me, and I'm sure our listeners will also have an amazing time knowing about all these trending things and the future that the meta holds. So thank you so much for this, Ritesh.
Thank you, Sukriti. Thank you so much.
So that was the Metaverse audience. Thank you so much for listening. It's time to sign off. Stay tuned to TechGig for all the latest tech updates and happenings.